Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about 802.1x authentication configuration flow on C9800 WLCs. I know many of you are from AOS world. We have a different configuration flow for AOS controllers. I know first time when we jump on .1x configuration for WLANs in C9800, we always have that understanding that okay, AAA config comes under security, WLAN configs, the SSID configuration comes under WLAN, and all parameters about advanced AAA config comes under WLAN, and then advanced tabs and all. However, in C9800, it's a totally different configuration model. You got profiles, tags, and then mapping those tags to the APs. So today we will only focus on how to enable .1x on WLAN and how do you actually configure AAA, which can actually map to different policy profiles or corresponding policy profiles, and then enable .1x. Let me go through those steps. So the first focus is about AAA config. So in AAA config, we are not configuring just a server with the IP address, shared secret, enabling COA and all. It's quite different, but very straightforward. First, as you know, just need to define AAA server IP address or add a AAA server config into WLC. So you would configure IP address, shared secret key, and enable support from change of authorization option. Okay. Then once you configure AAA server, add that AAA server under server group. And once you add that server, you may have multiple AAA server which can be part of one server group. So you can add those servers in specific server group. Once you add those servers in the server group, what you are going to do is an additional step which you would have not come across in AirVoice world. Here you need to configure. It's not new because in iOS XE or iOS based devices, you would have configured authentication list or the method list for AAA. So it's the same way, because it's a C9800 iOS XE platform. You would configure method list for authentication list, for accounting list. I'm focusing only on .1x enable WLAN, so I have not included authorization list here. So you would configure one method list for authentication and another for accounting. And what you would do is, under the authentication list, you would add those server groups. At the same time, in accounting list also you would add. Now, how different it is from AirVoice world, right? That's a question. So basically, you are getting little more flexibility by introducing method list, because you know what kind of orders or what methods you want to configure. So when I say methods, it's like you want to enable radius and then local credentials. So kind of a methods which you can introduce in one container, and then you can also introduce the orders of those methods. So if you want users to log in with the local credential first, you put syntax accordingly. If you want users to log in with radius authentication, so you would actually configure radius as a first, and then second is local. So you can define different methods as well as the order of method as a part of method list. All right. So that's about introducing method list, which gives you little more flexibility from the AAA perspective. That's about AAA. Now, what you would do is you would configure VLAN. So you would introduce the corresponding VLAN for that particular .1x enabled SSID. All right. So you created layer 2 VLAN. Now this is one block which has got only 4 steps. Now the second block is whatever you have configured, map it to respective profile. So which is the actual relevant profile for AAA is your policy profile and WLAN profile. So under WLAN, what you would do is, while creating a WLAN, you would configure WLAN name, profile name, L2 security mode, and map that authentication list or the method list under the authentication you have configured inside WLAN profile container. Alright. And for policy profile, you will map accounting list, and the VLAN which you have created, you would configure under policy profile, or you will select that VLAN under the drop down option inside policy profile. So you got WLAN profile and policy profile where the AAA config and VLAN config has gone. Now, once you configure these profiles, you need to add these two profiles under one container or under one tag, which is called policy tag. And the other two tags, which are site tag and RF tag, are right now we are not going to focus on that because this is just a .1x configuration flow. So site tags talks about AP join profile, flex profile. RF tag talks about in AirOS world, you can say it's RF profile config for 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. So we are not going to cover site tags or RF tags. Here we are going to talk only about the .1x relevant config. So you created WLAN profile, policy profile. Now you would map to policy tag. So under the tag, you got three tags: site tags, RF tags. The relevant tag for .1x config is policy tag. Under the policy tag, you would add that particular WLAN, which is configured with .1x. You have enabled .1x, you added authentication list, and then you would actually add policy profile, which has got accounting list mapped and VLAN ID. Alright. Once you are ready with the tag configuration, now the last point or the last, step which is left for enabling .1x is putting those tags to relevant APs. So AP should know what you want to broadcast with and what kind of, what SSIDs you are broadcasting, what profiles are mapped to that particular SSIDs and all. So you will map tags under the APs, and then that's it. AP will start broadcasting SSID with .1x. So if you see here, there are only 9 steps. The first step is all about introducing AAA, which has got only 3 steps. Additional 4th step is about VLAN. Then once you complete the AAA config, which is part of kind of a global config, you would add that into profile. So 4th step is your WLAN profile. The 5th step is policy profile. Once you configure that, you would map those to the policy tag. So if you see here, the 6th step is whatever profile you have configured mapped with the AAA config or authentication list and accounting list, you will map under the policy tag. And the last step, which is 9th step, you would actually map all those tags under the AP. And that's it. VLAN is really not a .1x configuration flow. I have added because this is like a starting from the scratch. I assume you haven't even created VLAN for .1x enable SSID. That's why I have added, but that's not the step, you can consider to configure .1x. But yes, let's start from the scratch, assuming there is no VLAN. If you consider VLAN step, it's 10 step. If you just consider AAA config, mapping to corresponding profile and then tag, then it's just a 9-step procedure. And the last step is just an additional step which you want to create ACLs. So for example, you have got some authorization profiles with the result, adding some attributes, where you have introduced some ACLs, aerospace ACL, and you are actually asking Radius server while replying with Radius accept message, send this ACL. So you can configure that. By the way, DACL or downloadable ACL is not supported in C9800 as of now. So you need to configure those ACLs in controller manually. The same name should be there in ICE config, okay, or AAA server config. And that's it. This is all about, enabling .1x. So you can see here, I got ICE WLC, which is C9800 CL. So I have installed controller on ESXi. I have got Prime infrastructure as well. It's not in our today's session. We are not going to talk about Prime infrastructure. But yes, I will be covering Prime as well as a part of monitoring and troubleshooting for clients in the next session. In upcoming session, I would be talking about Prime, but not now. And then I got a AD, DHCP, DNS, and CA server, which is having IP address as 192.168.20.253. An IP address for the client, I'll be configuring a scope in DHCP with 192.168 40. Or let's consider this is not 40, 50.0/24. All right. So this we will actually also cover the AAA config. Okay. So all right. So configuration AAA. I'm going to configure server. So I'll add server. IS1. IS IP address is 192.168.20.224. And this is my shared secret. I have enabled support for COA and apply. Then I'll add that server in server group, right? So server group name I'll add as RADGRP radius, and I'll add this server. Yeah. Source Wlan 40. So I have configured server, added into server group. Now the next is AAA method list. So I'm going to configure authentication list. So I will create this as RAD auth. Select value .1x. This is group. Then I'm going to add my server group, which I have configured. All right. If I want to enable fallback to local, I can enable that. So let me enable that. Apply. So I added my authentication list. I'll configure accounting list. So RAD CCT, and then I'll add accounting. So as you can see, that's it. I have got AAA configuration done. Now what is left? I need to configure WLAN profile and policy profile and map those method lists to WLAN profile and policy profile. So let me do that. So I'll configure now WLAN. Let me create WLAN v2sk corp. WLAN I'll add as 18. Status enable. I'll configure this for all radios for testing. This is WPA2. .1x is enable. I'll enable FT. So I'll have to enable fast transition. So enable over the DS. I can configure adaptive if I want. Okay, this is pure mode, so I'll configure enable. And what else? AAA. I need to configure. Don't forget, this is the important step for mapping authentication list to WLAN. So I map this layer 2 and AAA, enable WLAN, and that's it. So now my WLAN is enabled. Is it broadcasting right now? No, because still I haven't mapped this WLAN to any tag, or tag is not mapped to access point, right? So I have just created WLAN. Now I'll configure policy. I'll add a new policy, v2sk corp profile. This is just a name. Sorry, v2sk enable, and under access policy I'll map it to, okay, this is interesting. I haven't created VLAN, so that's a mistake, isn't it? I haven't created VLAN, so let me create VLAN config t, and I want to create a VLAN with the same name. That's it. So it's just a layer 2 VLAN. I'm not going to create SVI on the controllers, because as a best practice, C98 should be just a layer 2 bridging the traffic for the client, right? So I configure layer 2 VLAN 50. Now if I go back to GUI, I should able to get option to configure VLAN 50. So again I'll configure, because I haven't saved config for profile, so I'm going to configure that to sk corp profile, status enable, access policies, VLAN, and I should able to, where is it? I'm not getting. Let me see why. Show VLAN corp SSID. It is very much there, so I'll have to refresh the page. Tags, and I'll map this WLAN. So v2sk corp map to corp profile, added into this tag, and that's it. It's done? No, not yet, because I've just added WLAN profile and policy profile. Step 9, if you remember, right? This is my AP. I need to confirm whether the right tag is there. So I have already got the tag v2sk pro, and all this site tag and RF tag is not really something we need to focus on this session. But yes, I have policy tag already mapped, so I have confirmed. Now I'm good with the config. Now let me test the AAA server, right? Before proceeding and initiating testing everything. Now we will just test the AAA, okay? So test AAA group radius, server IP address 192.168.20.224. That's my ICE. Auth port is 1812. Accounting port is 1813. Username, I have got user as AD, one of the user from Active Directory, and password as this. Legacy. So user is successfully authenticated. That means I am able to communicate with the AAA server, right? So all good from WLC. Now it's time for me to test. But before that, I need to confirm whether I have got a DHCP scope created for Wlan. Alright, so we have done the configuration on the controller. We have configured AAA server and everything. Now let's confirm on ICE whether we have network device configured. I have already done it, but just let's verify that. So I have added this controller. As you can see, the IP address of my controller. This is my controller. 40.124, right? So it's been already added. I added enable radius, shared secret and everything. So AAA, the network device under administration is configured. I have also configured policy set. So this session is not really a ICE session or AAA settings on the ICE. So that's why I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this ICE config, but just to walk through quickly, I have created a policy set whereas I am actually telling that as a condition, wherever I have added network devices, I pointed out to WLC and radius NAS port as my wireless IEEE 802.11. And if you see my authentication policy, I have just configured V2SK sequence, which talks about AD as my preferred first way of let the user get in authenticated. So that's why this V2SK, if you want to see that, let's go to administration, external identity, source. My AAA is already integrated. It should be operational. So it is operational, and you want to see the sequence. So this is my V2SK sequence. As you can see here, my AD as a first preference and the internal endpoint is a second preference. So AD, user comes with the AD username. Is a DHCP scope created for. So I actually was not having a DHCP scope, so I created DHCP scope here. As you can see, I have excluded first 20 IP addresses, so hopefully I should be able to get IP address from 50.21 onwards. I have configured scope options, DNS, domain name, and default gateway. So let's give a try now. I don't have any client connected here. Let me see. This is my controller GUI. I don't have any client. Now I'm going to power on the Windows machine, and I have got the USB adapter connected to this Windows machine. So I should be able to connect to Wi-Fi through that USB adapter. So let me give a try, and then we should able to validate if the user is actually getting authenticated and getting the valid IP addresses. So user should get IP address from 192.168.50.0/24 subnet, and his name is John Doe with the username and password, which and he should be able to get in to the machine through domain. So let's give a try. Username, his password, enter. It's going to take time clicking on the appropriate SSID. So I have got a V2SK-corp as my SSID name. So let me try to connect to V2SK-corp. Connect. Memory. It is in run state, so which is good news. Let me see if user has got the IP address. IP config/all. Okay, cool. I got 50.21 as IP address. DHCP server is the correct IP address. Default gateway, DNS. So looks good. Am I able to ping google.com from user? Yes, I'm able to ping. So I'm good here. Let's confirm on the controller. Show wireless client summary, detail IPv4, and as you can see here, I got 50.21. This is my user MAC address. He's enabled with ft.1x in run state. So all looks good. Username is John Doe. Looks like all good, right? Details here. So I got user here. So .11 AC, V2SK Corp, SSID, general, and this is my IP address. Profile is correctly mapped. What else? This is my server IP address. All looks good. Is my DHCP server showing a lease for that IP address? So it should give it. Let me refresh this page, and then yeah, he's there. It's just 9 steps. Remember, you got AAA section, you got policy, and then you got tag, and the tag map to APs. And within the policy, you got only policy profile and Wlan profile, where you map the authentication list and accounting list. All okay. Thank you so much.